Merry Christmas. Hope you guys had a good time with family and friends. Today we're going to talk about a long-term review of the 2023 KTM 300XC. When you get a review from anybody, I think it's important to know what their skill level is, what kind of terrain they ride, and what bikes they've had in the past. So I am a open B level rider, pretty slow, just recently left C as far as like enduro, sprint enduro, and hare scramble kind of races. We ride in the Pacific Northwest, anything from single track to pretty tight pseudo hard enduro gnarly stuff. And I have owned a plethora of different bikes, but never had a new one. My most recent newest bike was a 2005 YZ250 that I kind of turned into an X model. Before that, I was on a KDX 220 for a bit. And before that, I was on a 2017 150 XCW. And before that, a CR250. And before that, like an '08 KTM 350. None of which were really ideal bikes for riding the kind of stuff we were riding. I would say the best two were probably the XCW, even though it was not enough power for me, and then the YZ250 was pretty good for single track stuff. So we used to live in North Carolina, and I bought that bike from Sport Durst Power Sports. I bought it for $10,500 out the door. It was a leftover 2023 model. That the 2024s had already been released, so I got a screaming deal on it. My first impressions from the bike were awesome. Like I said, I'd never had a new bike before, and it was just incredible. It was everything I could have hoped for. I rode it at a really sandy, kind of open place with some jumps in Outback MX Park in North Carolina. And then the following weekend, I actually rode in the Dragon's Back National Enduro in Virginia. And I'll be honest with you, the bike kicked my butt. I signed up really late for the race. I was on like the 300th row. So I had something like 600 riders right in front of me, and it was just like slot car racing, one single track the whole way, and the bike really beat me up, mostly because it was new and stiff, and also because I just wasn't that talented of a rider at the time. As far as upgrades I've done on the bike, I rode it stock for a long time, other than some protection parts. I got a bulletproof designs, tab protector, rear brake guard. We did bulletproof designs, rad guards, an Enduro Engineering case saver, Enduro Engineering TPS guard, and then some tugger straps. That was basically it. I rode it like that for a long time. Then when we got out here to Washington, I needed a spark arrestor, so I bought a Spanish Fly Racing insert for the OEM muffler and installed that. Install was pretty easy. It was great. It worked out awesome for being compliant for the Forestry Service. However, it was loud, very loud. Then not too long after that, I got an FMF factory fatty for the front. I felt like I wanted more bottom end out of the bike, so I had that on there for a long time. And I recently just got an FMF turbine core to complete the set. And very recently, I actually went back to the stock pipe since getting the TPS trail tune. And I've kind of begun to believe that the stock pipe is actually better for the kind of riding we do. It's smoother, and it doesn't rob so much power or through the mid-range particularly. Something I should have done much sooner was get a Guts gripper seat cover. The OEM seat cover is just really slippery and super thin. And in fact, it was good when I first got it. It kind of had some ridges to it, but quickly my riding pants wore them off, and then it ended up just being extremely slick. Especially here in Washington where it rains a lot. Once that thing got wet, it was just like slipping on the side of a pool deck. It was awful. Let's talk pros and cons. The bike has a lot of really good components on it. I would say the Brembo clutch and brakes are the best in the business. They're great. I've never had any problem with them. They bite as hard as I've ever wanted, and they've never been bled, never had a leak, never boiled over. They've just worked. I'm still on stock rotors and have only replaced the brake pads on the front and the rear. And even then, when I replaced them, they had plenty of life left. I'm still on the original chain and sprockets. The biggest change I did for gearing was to go to a 13-tooth front and then leave the 49 rear. That basically made second gear way more usable and then got me into third quite a bit sooner on the fast flowy stuff, and it was just perfect. I'm still on the OEM rear sprocket and OEM chain, and the front sprocket was probably replaced within like 10 to 15 hours of when I got the bike. Currently the bike's sitting at 110 hours, and I have literally just done air filters and oil changes. I did have a problem fouling plugs. There's a video on that. But as it turned out, it was just my TPS voltage was set poorly, and then I believe I had a bad crankcase pressure sensor. I changed it anyway, and since then I haven't had any problems fouling plugs. All in all, I'll take it. As far as reliability, the bike has never really left me stranded, other than just having to pop a new plug in. It's a bit annoying because you got to take the whole tank off, but after a while I got pretty fast at it. For pros too, the plastic is really high quality. I still have OEM plastics on my bike, and I've crashed a lot and have scratched the crap out of them, and still they're in great shape considering. The whole fit and feel of the bike is really good. The foot pegs are a little bit wider than the older generation bikes. It feels really good. The riding position feels really good for me. I'm about 6 foot, 190 pounds, and the bike just fits really well. I did go 1 spring rate higher on the rear spring, and then I adjusted my air pressure in the front forks accordingly. And once the bike got settled in and I feel like broken in well, I really didn't have any problem with the air fork. It was very comfy. I did do the Ride JBI DIY valving kit, and that was an improvement. But then I rode the bike for like another 80 hours without doing anything to the suspension. Finally, I actually dented a stanchion tube on the front fork, and I still have no idea how I did that. So I figured it was probably time to actually get the suspension done. I had Dave Sheets at TBT do his little custom valving for the bike, and that was a day and night difference. I didn't realize that the front forks could be that good. The biggest difference that I noticed was when you actually turn the clickers now, there is a real evident change to what the bike does, and also the small bump compliance. When you're kind of coming in slow and you hit maybe like those little golf ball to softball sized rocks that just kind of want to kick you real quick, the bike is a lot more reactive at getting through that crust of the first initial part of the travel, and that's everything I ever would have wanted about changing on the air fork. It's been great. He also did a bladder kit for the rear shock and helps the rear tire stay connected to the ground. I've noticed a pretty big difference with that in chunky hill climbs. The rear end just feels a lot more settled, especially when getting on the gas. I don't think the suspension changes are necessary. People gripe about the suspension on this bike a lot. At the end of the day, it's not built to sit and paddle on. It's supposed to be a cross-country bike. You're supposed to go faster on it. Just the suspension changes I did now give me a way broader spectrum of stuff that I can ride comfortably. I can ride the really chunky, slow second and first gear stuff with more confidence, and then also I can still haul butt on single track and know that the bike's going to hold up and save me from some big hits. For cons on the bike, there's a couple things that have bothered me. The most annoying thing is when you grip the bike really tight with your legs, the left side plastic where the airbox cover goes over has a tendency to get pinched in, and then it stays pinched in, and it changes the feel when you grip it with your legs. I noticed when I ride my wife's bike, if you squeeze it with your legs, you can push the airbox cover in, and it kind of gets caught on one of the tabs in there and then doesn't return to shape unless you physically pry it out. Another con that has always bothered me is if you're familiar with carburetor tuning, the bike always felt like right off the bottom what would be the pilot circuit, like it needed to go down 1 or 2 pilot sizes. It always kind of felt rich and kind of burbly, but then right as you got into mid, it would lean out and feel really good. That was always just a problem for the kind of riding that we did. Nothing too terrible, but the TSP trail tune, or any of the TSP tunes, I'm sure, clean up that bottom part throttle opening, and it has again just made it everything I ever would have wanted out of the bike. It feels much better now, much smoother on picking up, and you get that instant torque right off the bottom of the throttle. Another problem I've had with the bike is the T-piece connector that goes in the frame for the radiator. They've been known to crack and leak, and for some of the riding we do where we're 70 miles from the truck, that was something that I really didn't want to have to deal with. So I just bought a moto hose kit to replace it when I put the radiator guards on. And again, it was like $40, absolutely worth it just to know that that's a problem that won't happen to me. But it's annoying that that plastic piece is a known failure point and they continue to do it. Had a crash and ended up cracking the clutch cover right there on a rock. And I was actually able on the trail to just put some shoe goo in there. And it's been like that for probably 30 hours. It's not dented in enough to contact the clutch basket, and it hasn't leaked at all, so I'm just going to send it. That's really it for cons. As far as working on the bike, it's been awesome. I've just put oil in it and done clean air filters, and it's run surprisingly well. No problems. Just used Shell Rotella T4, 15W40 oil with no problems. I will say I love the way the clutch feels. I love the way it shifts. It always feels solid. It's still on OEM clutch plates and discs. I've never felt the need to change those. The only thing I have felt like I need to change on the bike constantly is tires, because we just keep riding it so much. I don't want this video to last too long. You guys are probably inundated with enough stuff. At the end of the day, the ultimate question is, hey, would I recommend that anyone buy one of these new generation KTM two-strokes? And the answer is unequivocally yes. I think they're awesome. I think anytime you try something new, there's going to be growing pains. And truthfully, I feel like KTM's already addressed some of them with the newer models. My wife is on a 2024 300 XCW. We're at 40 hours with the bike and have had zero problems. It's performed exactly as expected, and I think that's awesome. I don't really care to weigh in on whether or not KTM's going bankrupt. I don't understand finances and economics enough to really have an answer for that. I just feel like, at the bottom of my heart, they're not going anywhere, so these bikes aren't anything to be afraid of. I hope you guys can get one. I hope you can get one for a good price. We made a video on how you can leverage new sales to get a good sale price on a bike. I hope you guys can get out there, get on two wheels, and share the stoke with some friends. Get it, bud. Yeah. Good boy.